Okay, this is now the fifth time I've tried to introduce this vlog, mainly because I've stumbled over my words and tapped the microphone multiple times. But I'm keeping this in because it's the only way I think to break the spell of the introduction. I am Sarah Rockwood. I am a professional Renaissance woman, host of the podcast We Make Art, and founder of Elemental Alchemy, a space for artists to create lives that fully represent the wonderfulness of them, their wholeness, through personal development courses and rituals. And this is my vlog. And if I had a theme song, this is where it would be. Enter montage. Okay, so this is my second blog. I've been doing the podcast for a few years now. You can also see that on my channel, but I wanted a space where I could where I could have the conversations that didn't fit neatly into the podcasting format, and conversations about my own art making process, my own creativity, so I can show you how my life works having done the work that I facilitate through Elemental Alchemy. So this is a little bit more of a vulnerable space for me than the podcast. I'm very comfortable in the podcast. And I'm generally quite comfortable shooting the breeze with people and talking, but this is a different space, a different world. So I'm allowing myself and hopefully modeling that it can be a little rough, it can be a little bumpy, it can feel new, and that's okay. So thank you for sticking through this introduction. Today I want to talk about my latest project. So I call myself a Renaissance woman because I like the fancy title, and because it makes people go, and like sit back a little bit. And it's a concise way of saying that in addition to being a coach and a guide, I am also an author, a singer-songwriter, an actor, a director. I am a lot of different things. And I'm sure a lot of you watching this right now are also a lot of different things. And I like the title of Renaissance Woman because it gives space for all of those things and also implies a level of thought and philosophy and, dare I say, hopefully intelligence into the whole thing. So my latest project I have put out in the past, I've put out 5 different albums, all of my own material, singing and writing those songs. I've written 4 novels. I try to count the box set in my head, and then I'm like, no, Sarah, that's just a combination of other novels you've written, and collections of short stories. As I say, I've acted, I've directed, I've been a vocal producer, I've done all these different things, but this project I'm working on now, and maybe that's why my energy is a little out of sorts, is something I've never done before. It's adjacent, it's connected to things I've done before, but I've never done this before. And I am publishing a collection of my poetry. And on the surface, that feels like something that I should be quite comfortable with, being a songwriter. But in process, it was not that comfortable. And it took me a while to find my stride with it. And I thought about like, how would I show you the process of writing poetry? And then I'm like, because the whole thing with writing and storytelling is you show, you don't tell. But quite honestly, showing you the process of writing poetry is boring. I don't know if you've seen A Mighty Wind, but there's a scene where Eugene Levy's playing a songwriter and he's like in a hotel room with a pen and paper. And then he's like, like writes down. That's kind of what it looks like. And it's kind of ridiculous, I think, to sort of look at it. Maybe it's B-roll or something, but the focus of a podcast, of a vlog, I don't know if 10 minutes of me pondering things in my bedroom would be that entertaining. Also, that's the self-conscious part of me, being like, I don't know if people want to watch me doing my work. That is the fear part of me. The stronger part of me is choosing not to show that part of the work, is choosing to keep the actual process, the actual machinations of writing the poetry just to myself. And in the age we live in, with Instagram and YouTube and this and TikTok and all the different things, it feels scary to keep something private. Yeah, it does feel, it did, in the beginning, it did feel quite scary to be like, why aren't I posting about this? Why aren't I using this in some way? And I had to really give myself permission to be alone with it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like, especially with clients that I've worked with that have like really big social media followings, it's sometimes hard to try something new because you're so used to doing everything in the public eye that then taking on a new skill or a new challenge becomes extra scary because you don't want to share the rough stuff. Like it's so, yeah, so I just took it right off the table. So I've been writing this collection of poetry in private. I was going to say in secret, but it's not in secret, in private for like a year now. And as I said, I was quite scared of writing poetry. I'm honestly still a little bit scared about it, or a lot of bit scared about it. This collection does feel quite vulnerable. For me, it is a giant gulp. I hope the microphone caught that. It is the story, even though they're individual poems, it is the story of me coming back to myself. Sorry, I just saw on the monitor. I don't know if, yes, I am wearing a Bob Ross t-shirt. He's Bob Ross in space. Amazing. At a vintage store, and I was like, I don't care if it fits or not. I'm just going to take it home and find some purpose for it. Perhaps a pillow if it didn't fit. Anyway, it fits, so we're wearing it. The collection of poetry is the story of me reclaiming myself after escaping something quite horrible. I don't want to get too deep into that here because I think it deserves its own space, and I will talk about it again. But I escaped domestic violence in 2022, an 18-year relationship that was awful, and escaping it was awful, and coming back to myself has been rediscovering myself, returning to myself, has been the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah, second hardest thing was escaping. Hardest thing was coming back to me. And so this poetry collection represents that process. And it's funny to say this, but I didn't have the security blanket of melody. I'm very comfortable writing songs. You can throw me in a room with anybody. I'm happy to write a song. They come like this. It feels so natural to write music for me. So to take the melody away was a real kind of thing. And this is something I talk about in one of my courses, Embracing an Art-Filled Life. I'll put a link to it below if any of this sparks anything for you. But I talk there about how we silo our skills. And oftentimes we can be really good at this one thing, and we have it in our minds, and we are kind of taught this as well, to just leave those skills in that one section of our lives, and it can't go anywhere else. But when we really examine what those skills are, they become transferable to other areas and can strengthen us in other areas. So I really had to sit with, okay, what are the parts of songwriting that feel effortless? Why does it feel effortless? And I'm not saying I did a lot of writing out about this, but there was journaling involved of like, what is it about the freedom of songwriting? Where does that lay in your body? Where does it lay in your heart? And how can that be applied to an action that doesn't involve song and pitch and things like that? I mean, but the spoken word has pitch. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day. And once I allowed myself that freedom, the poetry started to move more easily. And in the beginning, I was just kind of writing. Whenever I had an idea, whenever there was something that, sparked in the day. There was one time I was working with my trainer, and I did a yoga move I'd never done before, garland pose, which is this like really deep squat, really deep squat, the kind of squat where you're like, can you stand to the side of me, not in front or behind me, thank you, while I'm working on this deep squat. And I'm dropped into it fully for the first time, and I had to really sit with my body in that place, and all the things that started to unravel. And the trainer said to me afterwards, like, hey, this was really a big experience for you, could you write something about it for me? And I was like, yeah. Like a testimonial or something. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Haha, you're going to probably get a poem. And I went home and wrote a poem about it. And it allowed the experience to become more embodied. I hesitate to use the word permanent, but safe and whole. Suddenly that position in my body, I'm not saying it's easy anymore or has become easy, but it feels more homey than it did before I allowed all of my skills to interweave through that experience. So once I found myself more comfortable with just the action of writing poetry, I knew I needed an element of structure that turned it from just a bunch of journal entries into a collection, into something with a through line. And I don't want to spoil too much about the book, but I came up with 5 different sections and a theme for each section. And I set a goal number. I have a Capricorn rising. So even though Pisces sun, Aries moon, and a Capricorn rising. So there is an element of organization to my mysticism. So once I had that kind of structure and those targets, I felt safer in the work. And this is again what I mean about like allowing your skills in one area to come through to another. Like maybe you're really, really good at organizing things for the office that you work in, or, for your children's school. Like, don't feel like you have to apologize for that, number one, in your art making, or two, close the door on it when it comes to your art making. Once I kind of just gave myself permission to be an organized person, things got nicer and easier because, there is this myth. Myth is the wrong word. Like an idealization of the basket case artist. The artist is like, they're so in their art that they don't even know what day it is, and we have to help them, and we have to do that. And if you don't fit into that mold, then you're not a heavy artist. Fuck that noise. Like, I don't see anything wrong with or anything that I should apologize for in being well organized and also making killer art. And I have seen in my years in the music business in particular, and actually in the actors I've worked with as well, that the basket cases, the artists that are too art for this world, I've seen them get really taken advantage of and really chewed up and spit out. So it kind of imparted to me that a little bit of this um, desiring artists to be the basket case is also desiring an artist that can be controlled, that can be taken advantage of. And I'm not doing that anymore. Like, it ain't happening anymore. Uh, so, so yeah, allowing my organization to feel free in the artistic process really helped me. Because the organization, because how many times can I say organization in a video? The structure, thesaurus time, having that structure, having those guardrails, again, allowed me to feel safe in an area of art making that was new to me, that is vulnerable for me. Well, okay, this is a vulnerable place, but I've created a container in which I feel safe. So that again is like when we pull in the skills that we already have, that we're already comfortable with, and take them into these new endeavors or into old endeavors that we're maybe not as feeling as shiny about, they help bolster us. Like, okay, if you watch more of these episodes and listen to my podcast, one of my big things is we are allowed to feel good. I want to feel good. I want to feel good every day. I mean, yes, there are ebbs and flows to emotion, but on the whole, I want to be having a good time. I want to feel good when I'm making my art. Yes, a poem can be incredibly cathartic. Have I wept while I've written this poetry? Yes. And I felt good and I felt safe because I had a container that held me. You know, and it did take a while within that structure to then figure out like where's the best physical location for you to write. And if you can you make it different from the place where you edit? All these kinds of things that like give us permission to explore and expand because they're holding us safe. So I just finished my second round of edits on the poems. So as I say, I had my sections, I had my targets in mind. When I called the first draft complete, I hadn't reached all my targets. And this is again where when you're in tune with your skills and you give yourself freedom, I trusted myself that, let's say my target was 7 poems in a section. Well, I only have 4 right now, but I've got 6 over here, 5 over here, you know. I trusted myself that when I went back into the editing, when I was able to kind of see the whole section of poems within the collection, that it would inspire me to write more in that world. And it did. It did. So yeah, I went into the second round of the second draft, not having it fully complete, came out of the second draft 99% complete. Why? Because as I got to the end of my second draft and there was one more poem to write, I heard like, okay, I hear stuff. I follow my intuition, whether you call it intuition, universe, God, whatever word you want to use. I use intuition and universe energy. I think there is magic involved with what we do. Space. I don't know why I associate space with magic. I don't know why, but I just do. I always have. And when I say magic, I don't mean like abracadabra. I mean the unexplained, the woo-woo-ness of it all. So yeah, I got to the end of this section. There's one more poem to write, and I heard a voice say, don't write it until you've gone through everything again, till you've finished the end of the third draft. And I was like, yeah, but if I just push through, I can get this done now. And I tried to push through, and I wrote shit. Like I wrote garbage. Like I'm writing and I'm like, this is not the vibe. You need to really trust the initial thought that you had. So yeah, so I'm now in that stage where it's all moving into the computer land because it needs to get printed. So I will do what I call applying the edits, where I go in and apply all my line edits to what I've already have typed up, and then again add the new poetry, and then I'll print that all out again. I will read through it for the third time, and then I'll write that final poem. And at that point, this is like, I don't know why, it just, the thing I really wish for everybody in the arts, whether you do it like as your profession, is something you do professionally to pay your bills, or you did it as a child and now you want to come back to it in your adult years, like trust in the self, personal trust is so wonderful. It's challenging, but it's so wonderful to be able to trust when the work is done as well. And I just know going into this final draft that like once I've read through it one more time, a couple edits here and there, and I've written that final poem, it's done. And it's time to move forward. I'm sorry I hesitated there, but I heard one of our cats. One of the cats, as I said, it's done, went like all the way upstairs. Yeah, the animals know. Yeah. So once we get into like, because you're on this journey with me now. Once I get into cover design and release dates and all those things, I will share that with you. For this first episode of sort of the second episode of my blog, I don't know, I guess that's what we're calling it. First episode of subset of the blog, about this book making journey. Yeah, I'll share the title with you. I'll share the cover with you, and then I'll start sharing the poems with you. And that's gonna be pretty wild. So thank you for watching through to the end here. I do really appreciate it, and I hope that hearing the messiness of this, but also hearing the like triumphs. Why am I hedging my bets? The triumphs of this, that like we can do new things, we can create things that feel good, that change and move us forward. I hope that you let those wheels start to spin for yourself and you find your art in your everyday. And I'll talk to you later.